Bonjour et merci bien, Hugo. Oui, je suis très désolé that I'm not going to do this in French. I apologize. In the next hour or so, I want to tell you a few stories. I want to share some best practice tips with you. This isn't a traditional kind of workshop, but what I'd encourage you to do is if you have any questions as I go through, or you think, shit, he's talking far too quickly and I don't understand what he's saying, please interrupt. We don't have to wait to the end for Q&A. Please interrupt as we go along. So, the last time I was standing on stage was about 10 days ago. And it was in a very different environment to this, right? It was a long way away from a city. It was here. It was here in Wales, on the west of the UK. Anyone been to Wales? Anyone? Okay, cool. This was at a conference called the Do Lectures. Has anyone heard of the Do Lectures? It's really worth checking out, okay? The Do Lectures has been going for 8 years. It's had some really cool people in tech who've spoken there. Tim Ferriss, a guy called Tim Berners-Lee, who you may have heard of. And I don't know if you've been to South by Southwest. This is like the opposite of South by. Instead of having the talks in a convention center, the talks are on a farm, in a barn. And instead of staying in hotel rooms, you stay in tents in a field in the middle of nowhere, right? Oh, and there's no Wi-Fi. So, it's an amazing experience. And there's only 80 delegates, only 80 attendees and 20 speakers. And I recommend you check it out. It happens once a year in California, once a year in Wales, and once a year in Australia. But I'm telling you about this because when I was at the Do Lectures, it reminded me, it confirmed to me the importance of sharing and telling stories, right? And I don't mean just people standing on stage telling stories. I mean when you get to know someone for the first time, a business or work relationship, or even if it's not business or work relationship, you tend to trade stories. You tend to say what you've been doing, what you've been working on, tend to tell stories. And at the Do Lectures, when you are sitting around talking to people around the dinner table or around the campfire, I thought, yeah, stories are the most valuable communication tool we've got. And they fire me up, and as Hugo said, I've spent a lot of my life working in storytelling. Because look, here's the challenge, right? I sense, I've done my research into the family. It's an amazing startup community here in Paris. I've already met a couple of people who come up and said hello. And here's the challenge, there's all this entrepreneurial energy in this room. There's these startup ideas. There's all this startup talent. But the challenge, one of many challenges for you guys as early stage entrepreneurs is how to get heard, how to stand out, how to get noticed. And I think especially in tech, we tend to compete on, kind of product functionality and product benefits. And sometimes it can be difficult to get heard if that's what you're competing on. And what I want to evangelize today as kind of the opportunity, sorry, this is popping a bit, isn't it? The opportunity is to think about the power of the story, to think how different things could be if instead of putting the spotlight on how cool your product is, how awesome your business is, your product or service, that you put this spotlight on yourself and started talking about your purpose and your story, and you try to get noticed that way. What I want to do is I want to tell you 3 stories, and we all know that behind every startup there's an amazing story. Well, not an amazing behind everyone, but normally. And that's why we got all these bookshelves here with these amazing stories. We haven't got business plans and spreadsheets on the wall, on the bookshelves. We got fucking books because we know that stories are a great way about communicating ideas. And there's a lot of startup stories that we're very familiar with. The story of Airb'n'b, and it's a great story, isn't it? How Brian Chesky in the Bay Area started Airb'n'b. We know the story of Uber, and we know all those stories. I want to tell you today 3 stories about startups and businesses you may not have heard of, but they're all really good stories for me. Okay, so quite a few people here are wearing jeans. Nice. What brand are you wearing? Do you know what brand jeans you're wearing? Levi's. Cool, yeah, Levi's. Any other brands people are wearing jeans-wise? What are you wearing, sir? Huh? Cool, okay. Have you heard of Hyatt Denim? H-I-U-T, okay? Hyatt Denim is a jeans company that was launched in Wales 3 years ago in 2012. And I smile when I said Wales because there's a connection. The guy who's the founder of the Do Lectures, a really nice guy called David Hyatt, is founder of Hyatt Denim, H-I-U-T. And Hyatt Denim are based near the small town of Cardigan in Wales in a tiny little factory. There's this tiny company that are 3 years old, but they've got big plans to go global. And here's David. He used to run a brand called Howie's. You know that brand, Howie's? Kind of outdoor clothing brand. And this is him in his factory. And I want to tell you about his story, but rather than me tell it, I'm going to play a little video.
Cardigan Town was Britain's biggest maker of jeans up until 2001, and it made 35,000 pairs of jeans a week, every week, for nearly 40 years. And that's a ton of jeans, but also like a ton of knowledge. And over that time, they learned to be one of the best makers of jeans in the world. But because of economics, that factory closed in 2001, and economics is kind of ruthless like that. But in essence, they'd fought the wrong battle, and the battle of who could be the cheapest was China. And it's not going to be us. And maybe it'll be Vietnam next or whoever. But if you're going to go and fight that battle, you have to fight that battle elsewhere. But the battle that we can fight is around quality and innovation. And I was just saying in the van, is this is possible because of one word, internet. And we are a direct-to-customer maker. And because of that, we can afford the best makers in the world, and we can afford the best fabrics. So, so when Tim Berners-Lee comes to the Do Lectures, and he has to come to our house because he can't send an email, because the Wi-Fi is so bad. I love the irony in that, because actually we can send emails out now, and we can sell direct to our customers. And how we're building the business is by, in a world where you can have everything, we're doing short runs. And so we find really amazing fabrics, and then we go and send an email out. And even before that fabrics arrive with us, we've sold them all. And that's how we're building our company. And the quest, the aim, the reason you want to get out of bed early in the morning is, can we go and get 400 people their jobs back? And I'm going, there's never been a better time to be a maker, a small maker, with a crazy dream than right now. And I'm sort of blessed, in fact, Ellen, Grandmaster Ellen, runs the factory. I don't make any decisions in the factory whatsoever. She is completely the boss. I don't even know what time they come in. I don't know. I don't work out their holidays. I don't do anything, because I've never ever run a factory, and I'm not going to start now. But I run another factory, and that is to make the content in this very busy world for people to come back and go, hey, Hyatt's there. And so there's two factories. There's the jeans factory, and then there's the content factory. And in that very busy world, I'm competing for attention. And so that's what we do.
Okay, so oops. Okay, where's Hugo? I don't know how to go back to full screen. We can live with it. I don't know how to go back to full screen there. So I don't know if people heard that, because it was difficult. The audio wasn't great. It was shot on my phone. But that whole thing about David and what he's doing with Hyatt Denim is he realized that his local town had all these hundreds of people who knew how to make jeans, right? They knew how to make really good jeans. And manufacturers took jeans production away from the UK, so then all these people were out of work. So David's purpose is, how can I get those people their jobs back? How can I get their jobs back? That's what my startup Airb'n'b is going to do. And that's a great purpose, and it's also a great story. And it's a story that has really engaged people. When they first launched, when they launched and when they first opened, took the website live for orders, that they had to take the website down because they got so many orders for jeans they couldn't cope with it. They were so surprised by people were fired up about what they stood for. They were fired up about their story. In a world where, yeah, we can go and get jeans from Primark or H&M for 20 euros, they were fired up about a company that stood for something, because the jeans from Airb'n'b, I mean, they're expensive, right? They're 230 quid. But the idea is, if you don't change your size, you can have them for life, and they do free repairs for life. But they're selling a story. They're selling an idea. And the people that buy Airb'n'b are really passionate about the brand. And there's something else, I think, there that works really well, which is Airb'n'b are tiny. They've just got 15 people, and all those 15 people don't even work there full time. But they're trying to fight the big guy. They're trying to fight the big brand. They're trying to fight the Levi's. And a lot of people like supporting the underdog. We like supporting the little guy against the big guy, don't we? So again, that's why they're doing so well. And I know, we've got a range of businesses and early stage entrepreneurs here, and I know no one's making jeans, but I think there's a lesson here. There's a really interesting lesson about the power of story. Story number 2. Does anyone know what this is? Anyone come across this? No? It's this. It's not a condom. It's Sugru. So you've heard of it, yeah? Okay. What do you know about it? That's right. So I don't know if we heard our friend here, but Sugru was invented kind of by accident in 2003 by a woman who was at the Royal College of Art in London. Her name's Jane Neagle-Quintig, the unpronounceable surname, Jane Neagle-Quintig. And she was experimenting with silicon and wood dust. And she found this product, she found this thing that was really flexible and really malleable, but after a while it would set in position and stay as it is. And she's invented this product which has amazing benefits, but it's a really difficult product to sell because you could use it for like 1 million applications. I had on my MacBook cable was really thinning. Sometimes when a MacBook cable thins, and I thought, shit, I've got to go to the Apple store and get a new one. But I put some Sugru in to mend it, and it's been fine for another 12 months. You can use Sugru to fix stuff around the house, to fix things, so many uses. So it's quite a challenge for the consumer. Got to think, how am I going to use this product? It's a difficult product to sell. But what's happened is people have got really engaged by Jane's story, okay? Yeah, there we are, February 2003. She was experimenting in the lab at Royal College of Art, and she came up with this thing. And it's taken her by surprise. 5 years ago, Sugru was available in 1 store. Today, it's in 5,000 stores, and I need to remind myself of the figures, but it's 1 million users in over 160 countries. And one reason that it's really caught people's imagination is because it's a great story. You'd heard that story, or you would heard a version of it. I don't know if you'd heard it on Twitter or online or wherever you'd heard it. Where had you heard it? On her website, okay. So it's a great story, but she's also got a great purpose, because in a world where if something breaks, a lot of us tend to just chuck it away and we'll get a new one. Jane's product stands for the idea that let's fix things instead of throwing things away, which is a really nice purpose, isn't it? It's a really nice mission that we can get behind. And when I met Jane, she told me that growing up on a farm in Ireland helped give her that sense of, when she grew up on a farm in Ireland, her grandmother taught her about, we fix stuff, we mend stuff, we sew, we don't chuck stuff out if it's broken. And that gave her that purpose, that gave her that mission, that Sugru is all about fixing stuff. There's another advantage to, so basically what happened was, it's got so much traction online because people are so passionate about the product. She's kind of got an online community which become kind of brand ambassadors. They become kind of brand evangelists because they love Sugru so much. Because it's got so many uses, as our friend here said, people tend to upload videos to YouTube and upload pictures to Instagram of how they've used Sugru. And I was looking on the Twitter feed this morning, and someone had, in fact, it was that test tube one where someone's done, they made a lid for test tubes, and they're a scientist or something. And it's like, you know, who would have thought that's a use for Sugru? So all these people that are passionate, they do a lot of, you know, in business we talk about customers doing the heavy lifting. You know, the Sugru customers do the heavy lifting because they go, this product is awesome. Do you know what I used it for? And then they share that idea, and they're fired up about it, which gets other people fired up about it too. But as you can see, because I've given the reveal already, the other great thing is it's not just about customers. A few weeks ago, Sugru went on to Crowdcube and they said, we want to equity crowdfund £1 million to enable us to expand. And as you can see from this post they put on Instagram, within 24 hours, they got £580,000. You know, they've got nearly £600,000. You know, over 50% in 24 hours. Because soon as they pressed launch on that crowdfunding campaign, people were passionate about the product. I want a bit of this. I want a bit of it, because of the story. You know, Sugru has never been a product that's been marketed or sold on, oh yeah, it's a mix of this chemical and this constituent and this. It's about the idea. It's about the story, and it's about the purpose. And I think that's really exciting, especially when you need to go to the crowd to get funding. Okay, so story number 3. This is a guy in the UK called Matt, and he likes beer. Quite a few people in the UK like beer. But when Matt was a teenager, he was really passionate about beer. But he was really passionate about discovering new beers in the same way a lot of us are passionate about discovering new wines. He wasn't interested in cheap supermarket lager. He was interested in finding these beers from this little independent brewery, you know, what we would call today craft beers. Do we call them craft beers in France as well? Maybe, not sure. So Matt decided to start a beer club. And he started a beer club in his shed. And every week, he would invite friends of his round to taste beer, a bit like a wine tasting, but beer. To taste the beer, he would tell the story behind the beer, and then what would happen is that people would say whether they liked it or not, what they thought about it, and everyone loved it. And more people said, can we come? And it was friends and family, and more people said, can we come? So in 2012, you know, this is just a hobby thing. Matt thought, how can I grow this? How can I scale it online? Can I turn it into something online? Could I turn this beer club in a shed into an online proposition? So he decided to put a one-page website up and said, if you're interested in an online beer subscription club, give your email address and sign up, and if it goes live and it happens, I'll contact you and let you know, and you can be one of my first customers. And Matt said, if in 24 hours I get 30 people, I'll do it. And what happened was, in the first 24 hours, Matt got 250 people signing up. So I don't know. Does anyone know how I take this full screen on the PDF and lose that on the left? It would be better, wouldn't it? Hey! There we go. So he launched this, BeerBods. It's a really simple online subscription club. You pay £3, and every week you get delivered a bottle of beer, and you get tasting notes with it. And every Thursday, people go online, and with a hashtag on Twitter, they hang out and they talk about what the beer was like. So they're recreating what happened in the shed, but they're doing it online. And it's now hundreds of people, low thousands of people. It's not that huge, but, you know, low thousands of people. And it's really, really caught on. And in 2013, I wrote about Matt, and I interviewed him in the Financial Times. And at that time, he decided to quit his job and to make BeerBods a full-time business. And he took on second member of staff, which is great because he's like the accidental entrepreneur. He also wanted to raise money. He didn't want to raise £1 million, but he went on crowdfunding. He wanted to raise £150,000, and he raised £150,000 from 101 investors in 36 hours. Now again, like Hyatt Denim, like Sugru, let's remember what this business success is about. It's about the story. It's about everyone can relate to this guy in the shed starting something, taking it online. But also, it's about his purpose. It's about what his business stands for. Because Matt has a really simple purpose. His purpose is getting people drinking better beer. That's what it is. Let's not have shit beer. Let's have good quality beer like we have good quality wines. And that is like a kind of an election slogan, isn't it? It's like a politician's call to action, getting people drinking better beer. And that's why he's become a success. So, stories are really special. As I said, when I walked in here and I looked at all the books on the shelves, we don't have framed business plans. We don't have framed spreadsheets. We have books. People don't remember data. If I'd come up here and just told you those figures about those crowdfunding campaigns, or showed you a graph, or showed you a spreadsheet, we wouldn't have remembered them. I've told you stories for a reason, because they're shareable and we can pass them on. Hopefully, you've understood. I'm sorry I'm not talking in French today. Hopefully, you've understood some of these stories, and they feel memorable, and they feel special enough. And stories, as I put up here, stories aren't just about marketing, are they? Often when we're talking about storytelling, we think, that's some function of marketing. It's not just a function of marketing. It's a cultural touchstone. It's a cultural touchstone. Brian Chesky wrote a nice piece on Medium about a year ago about Airb'n'b, and it was called Don't Fuck Up the Culture. Did anyone see that post he did? It was great, and it was just reminding Airb'n'b of where the thing started and where the story started, not to lose sense of that. So it's a cultural touchstone. It's how the world sees you. Yes, it does become your differentiator, informs relationships, informs when you hire people that they understand the story and they understand the purpose. Stories are about engaging with people on an emotional level, getting people fired up. It's not always about talking about products. It's talking about people. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the 3 stories I've told you. And I don't know, you might not agree that they're good stories, but I don't know if anyone wants to comment on why you feel, what they had in common, or why you feel they worked. Does anyone have any comments? Otherwise, I'll tell you what I think. I think these work because all these 3 stories are about businesses that don't compete on their products. They compete on their story and on their purpose. They all serve tribes of people, communities who care passionately about the brand and become kind of the brand keepers, become the brand sharers, become the brand evangelists and the ambassadors. All 3 also use digital tools and social media to spread the word, to raise funds. But you know what? They've all got a great founder story, whether it's David with his jeans, Jane with the Sugru, or Matt and his beer club. They're all human. They're all human. And I told you these stories because I've written about all these 3 companies for the Financial Times. And why did I write about them in the FT? Because they excited me. They're stories of people trying to fulfill their dreams. And in the same way, you guys as early stage entrepreneurs have had an idea and you want to execute on that idea and you want to make it happen. These might be in different sectors. These might not be straight tech companies, although all of them couldn't exist without the internet. They're human stories. And that's what any good story is. They're story-led, but also purpose-led. The title of my presentation was How to Leverage Your Story and Your Purpose. So let's just talk about purpose for a minute. Your purpose is what you believe in, what makes you tick, what motivates you. And probably everyone's got that motivation to get out of bed in the morning, what it is. David Hyatt on the video said, I don't know if you heard it because the audio wasn't great, he said what got him out of bed in the morning was the idea that he could get 400 people their jobs back as jeans makers. That was his motivation. Really strong purpose, right? I don't know if you've seen the Simon Sinek TED Talk, but I know it's much quoted, but I'm going to quote it because I like it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think the danger is some of us sometimes hide that why away. The raison d'etre. We don't talk about it. We take it for granted. And what you need to do with that raison d'etre is shine the light on it and say, this is why I do what I do as an entrepreneur. This is why I get out of bed in the morning. This is why I'm passionate about my startup, about my business, about my job, because of the why. I want to change the world. I want to be the new Uber. I want to disrupt a sector, whatever it is. It's all about purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, and if you don't stand for something, if you're not fired up by something, how can you expect people to invest in you, people to buy your products or services? You're screwed. So the Hyatt Denim purpose, getting the people of Cardigan their jobs back. Sugru, Jane told me our dream is to make fixing, modifying, and making things easy and fun for everyone. Okay. The good thing about a purpose is it can be a magnet for you or it can't be. So you'll say to yourself, I like that or I don't like it. But you have a view on it probably. Beer bods, getting more people drinking better beer. Simple, right? So all of you sitting here, I don't know if you know what your purpose is, whether you're in touch with what your purpose is. If you are, great. Light it up. Put it on your Twitter bio. Put it on Instagram. Get it tattooed on your wrist. Talk about it. Don't hide it away. If you don't know what your purpose is, I've got some postcards I'll leave behind, a little manifesto to help you think about how you nail it and capture it. It's important. So, I want to make sure there's some value for you. I want to share a few best practice tips, and as I said, feel free to interrupt me as we go if you're not getting it or you're finding you've got a question that's not being answered. Here's the process I use for telling a story when I'm working with a client. 4 stages: explore, capture, create, and share. The exploration is what I've just been talking about. It's about asking the question. It's about thinking like a detective and going, okay, shit, right, what fires you up? What's my story? What's my purpose? What do I stand for? That's really important. It's almost like story archaeology, because sometimes the story isn't what you think it might be, and you've got to dig deep to find it, right? It's not always as obvious as like the 3 I've told you for your own purposes. You've got to capture that. You've got to nail it. You've got to capture it up here, and you might want to nail it in a piece of content, or you might want to create some pieces of content, and then once you've got it, you share it. It's thought leadership. It's a blog post. It's a Medium post. Twitter, Facebook, presentation deck, manifestos, whatever. You've got to get it out there. Don't sit on it. Part of telling a story is capturing it and then sharing it. But if you're thinking about nailing your own story for your startup, whether you're a one-person business or a bigger startup than that, people, not products. I wrote for the Financial Times for 1.5 years, and I got pitched a lot of stories, especially by tech companies, right? And they'd say, Ian, you're going to love our business. We've just got some amazing funding. We've just introduced version 2 of the software of the app on the App Store, and it's awesome. Didn't interest me. Didn't interest me. I want to know the human story. That's all I'm interested in. And that's all your audiences are going to be interested in, really, the people. This woman on the left is a woman, Catherine Parsons. She runs a really successful tech company in London, Silicon Roundabout, called Decoded. She's got a really simple purpose: teaching people to code in 1 day. Okay? Not kids, executives. You might be a banker, you might be an accountant, whatever, and you need to understand code. You're not going to become a coder, but you need to understand the language. That's what Catherine's business does. And I loved her story of how she landed on that idea. And then there's our friend Matt, the beer guy. Again, a story of entrepreneurial risk-taking, a story of a guy who quit his job because he wanted to turn his passion into a business. There's a story, right? Will he succeed? Will he fail? You know, we're interested, we're engaged. It's about people, not products. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I understand what Ian's saying, I know what my story is, or you might be thinking, I'm not sure what my story is, it feels like I've got a few. There's more than this, but these are my 6 types of story. The Eureka story, that's the story of how you had your idea, or where you came up with your idea for your great app, or it's the Jane story of how she invented Sugru in the lab. It's, wow, Eureka, okay? The why story. That's David Hyatt, the jeans guy, told me that he was running in the hills in Wales, in the hills and mountains above his town of Cardigan, when he had the idea that in that valley, all these people who are unemployed but they know how to make jeans, could I get them their jobs back? That's the why story. The founder story is obvious. It's the person behind the startup. The customer story, maybe like Sugru, you know, where the customers do a lot of the heavy lifting, talking about the product. And if you feel that you've got a product or a business or service that's quite intangible and you can't really see where the story is, a customer story is always a good way of telling the story. I spoke to a lady at the back who was telling me about her oil and gas business, and sometimes, you know, that sounded an interesting business, but it was like, okay, she had to tell me twice before I got it. Maybe a good way of telling your story is telling your customer story. How have you changed the life of your clients that you've connected? Put them into touch with each other. The customer story is a great get-out if you're struggling with what's the story. Product story, how is the product being used? And then we've got the transformation story. Not every startup has the transformation story. It's the Airb'n'b. It's the Uber. It's we're changing the world with our startup, okay? So an ingredient for any good story, keep it human. We need that emotional engagement with whoever your audience is, whether it's clients, whether it's investors, whether it's journalists and press. You might be familiar with the idea of there's 3 acts to a story. A lot of work's been done. There's a lot of good work online. Nancy Duarte's done some good work on this. She talks about the 3 acts in any story. The first act is the situation, where you establish a situation where, I don't know, it could be like, let's establish we've got David Hyatt is this guy and he wants to get the people of Cardigan their jobs back. Then he's got the complication. His complication is, how's he going to get the word out there? How's he going to beat the big jeans companies when his jeans cost 230 quid? And then there's the resolution. People are buying it, people love it. The 3 acts. And also, in any story, whether you're writing something, a blog post, or you're trying to frame a story, this is what my editor, when I worked for Monocle magazine, Monocle Radio, told me. He asked me to go and do a piece. Actually, it was a piece on a startup called French Radio London, which you might have heard of as a digital radio station in London serving French people, because London is the 6th biggest French city. And he said to me, Ian, go and talk to this guy. He said, all I want to know are the 5 W's, the what, the who, the where, the why, the when. What's the story about? Who's it about? Where's it happening? Why is it happening? When did it happen? The 5 W's. So telling your story and sharing your story is more than just a sales and marketing piece. In networking, in pitches, you know that awful question that we all get asked, what do you do? I hate that question. Don't know about you. At networking, at dinner parties, you can answer with a story. Maybe you can answer with a little story. Well, I used to do this, and then I decided I want to change the world by doing this, and I want to get people drinking better beer. Are you in or are you out? Social, digital, investor relations, employee engagement. You know, this isn't an exhaustive list, but I just want you to think about storytelling as more than just a marketing piece.
I think that's the difficult part, not to synthesize the idea of what your story is about. Because when you get asked, as example, a question, what is that you do? And you go and try to describe all this huge situation, instead of just like already having like a slogan or like a call to action, that will go right to the point and people will understand what your business and what you're about. So I think
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I think it's about distilling something. It's almost so you've got the language up here, and it's in your mind so you know how to do it sharply and succinctly. Now, although I'm a storyteller, one way in which I work with clients is I help them discover what makes them tick. I help them discover their story. And the language I use, if you look at my Twitter bio, is what fuels me is helping others find their fuel. So it's very short. It's an opportunity to tell a story around it, maybe does some of the things you're talking about. I think nailing that is key. I don't want to get too obsessed about the words and the language, but on the other hand, it is important. Maybe it will go on your Twitter bio. Maybe it is something that will appear everywhere. And it becomes, yeah, that's my language. But it's a good point. Thank you. This is a Seth Godin quote. The internet has given us an opportunity. Now, the internet has given us an opportunity to create and test business ideas rapidly online. But what fires me up is how we can use the internet as a microphone to tell stories, to share what we do, to share our purpose. We live in a digital age with an amazing opportunity for telling stories online. I'm sure most of you are on Twitter and you appreciate the value of Twitter, so I'm not going to sell Twitter to you. But just as an example, our friends at Airb'n'b, they haven't got thousands and thousands of followers, but David Hyatt, the founder, he does the Twitter, and he's passionate about startup culture, right? He's passionate about Steve Jobs, he's passionate about tech. So a lot of his tweets are around startup culture and startup language. If you can't see it because the screen's split, it's good to make your mistakes as fast and as cheap as you can. Learn and iterate, learn and iterate. And it's got some retweets and favorites, some people get it, and it's a good use of Twitter. If you're building a community, email newsletters are a good way to build a tribe and nurture a tribe. And the smart thing, this is Airb'n'b's newsletter, and it's called Scrapbook Chronicles. And as you can see, they've sent out 57 of them so far in 3 years. So it's like every 2 weeks, I think. In that newsletter, they don't sell jeans. They don't say, oh, we got some new jeans out. I mean, they occasionally might say that, but they're just saying, here's a really cool book we've just read. Here's a really amazing singer-songwriter we've just discovered. Here's a really good band. Here's a really good app. This is a good YouTube link to something. There's a great product to this guy that makes knives in Palo Alto, and they're amazing, or whatever it is. So they're being really smart. They're not using it to sell jeans. They're using it to sell an idea and to build a community. How many people blog on Medium? Anyone use Medium? Great. Do you like it? It's good, isn't it? What I think about Medium is sometimes Medium.com, for people that don't know, which is founded by Ev Williams, the founder of Twitter. It's a great blogging platform. What I like about it is sometimes if you're blogging on your own blog, you feel it needs to be so polished, it needs to be so good. Medium feels like you can think out loud, you can share, you can... What do you feel about it?
Text editor is good.
Yeah.
It's easy.
It's easy, isn't it? It's a great, you just go on there, it's a lovely user interface, it's a great user experience. I know blogging takes time, and as early stage entrepreneurs, you've probably got 377 things to do, and it's like, do I ever really got time to blog? But blogging is a great real-time storytelling device. It's great for talking about what you're doing. It's great to sharing your struggles as an entrepreneur and saying, this is what I'm going through at the moment, good and bad. It's a great way of engaging with your audience, whether they're investors or whether they're customers. It's also nice kind of behind the scenes, talking about what we're doing. Here, David Hyatt is talking about the content factory. He's got a jeans factory, and then he's got a content factory because he needs to make all this content online. This is a nice one. This was, I don't know if you've seen that lovely manifesto by Holsti, that Brooklyn company that got the Holsti manifesto, as they put at the bottom, with a nod to Holsti. Sugru have produced the Fixers manifesto. It's a nicely designed manifesto you can download, you can share, you can put it up on your pinboard or whatever. It's not selling Sugru, it's selling the idea that it's better to fix stuff than chuck stuff away. Maybe you could steal that idea for your own businesses and think, what is it we stand for? Can we turn it into a manifesto? I stole it and made these. it's great because it's sharing the idea. It's shining the light on the idea, not the product. Instagram, I think, is a really great tool for telling a story. If you're like an entrepreneur, a business founder, and you really don't have time to blog, I like following some entrepreneurs on Instagram. I think it gives a nice kind of behind the scenes, obviously it's only visual, image-led, behind the scenes kind of commentary on what they're doing. I follow Paul Smith, the fashion designer, Jamie Oliver, the chef. Don't know if you know Swiss Miss, at Swiss Miss, Tina Roth-Eisenberg in Brooklyn, the design community woman. They use Instagram in really nice ways. And Sugru use Instagram in really nice ways because they put up photos from their community of people that have used Sugru for amazing things. A little thing to hold a book open when you're reading it, that's cool. Some hooks with magnets, so you can just take those things off when you walk out the door. Someone that had a wash basin that was too small to put their hand cleaner, so they made a little corner. These are great, yes, like a little, you can put a MacBook cable, just fits in a Lego hand. So it's just a really great way of shining the light on how the product is used and shining the light on the customer rather than saying, you know, here's Sugru and this is how much it costs and buy it, whatever. And then, of course, video. I'm not going to spend ages talking about video. But, you know, whether it's putting something up on YouTube, Jane did a video about why they were starting equity crowdfunding, or whether it's using Vine, just to really short. Obviously, with Vine, you've got the constraint of the platform because it's so small, but just taking a little video about what Sugru is, nice use of Vine, right? So that's it, really. I just want to evangelize the importance of competing on your story and purpose. I'd like you to start thinking about how you can apply that to your businesses, to your startup, to your role. I've met so many businesses where you talk to the founder, and once you get talking to them, you hear about all these amazing, you hear this amazing founder story, you hear this amazing purpose, and I go, but where is it? You're not talking about it. You're hiding it away. Don't hide it away. Use the power of the story to grow your business. Merci bien. Have we got any questions? Is there any way I can help with any of your businesses where you're really struggling, where you're thinking, yeah, I get this, but how does it work for me? Anything you haven't understood? Yes?
So, to which extent does that apply to B2B?
Apply to what? Yeah. So sure, no, it's a good question. To what extent does that apply to B2B? And it's a different world than B2C, obviously. But you know what? Storytelling in B2B is on the increase. I work with a B2B marketing agency in London who work with tech clients. And they're finding that storytelling in B2B is a way of cutting through the noise to get noticed, to stand out, to be distinctive. So storytelling is starting to be more of a tool in B2B. It's different nuances, but it has the same value because even in B2B versus B2C, you're still in the human business. The people that are making the decision in B2B, whether to buy a tech product or not, or buy a cloud solution or whatever it is, they're still people. The people making those decisions are human beings. Even though it might not be buying a pair of jeans or buying a Sugru or buying some beer, the same things apply. So I think customers are customers. I mean, I know there's so many differences B2B and B2C markets, but I think the thing about storytelling is about a human, emotional engagement. Maybe.
And what's the name of the agency?
That agency is called Rooster Punk. Yeah. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Does the story have to be entirely genuine?
That's a really good question. Does the story have to be genuine to be successful? It does really, because I think, if you find out that wasn't really the story about Jane or Sugru, you'd be so angry, you'd be like putting this in the fire. I think we can edit the story. We can all be editors of our own stories. We can all tell a version of the truth. There might be bits we want to leave out of our own stories. and we shine the light and amplify the bits that have more impact. So edit your story, but don't bullshit it. Don't make it up. It's got to be genuine, sure. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. And I've got some postcards if you want any. Thank you.